The Gilas Pilipinas Under-19 Youth Squad were able to establish an early advantage in the opening quarter in their match against Greece, only to squander it the rest of the way. What happened along the next three quarters, and how did Greece establish their dominance against our Gilas Youth Squad? Watch more of this video coming right up! Hop in and welcome aboard. It's your boy once again, Lance Fernandez, trying to dissect for you the game between Gilas Pilipinas Youth Under-19 squad against the host nation or the host team of the World Championships, Greece. And as for those who have seen it, and for those who have witnessed it, and for those who did not sleep early and had to, or slept early and then woke up at the wee hour of the morning and were able to catch up the game via live stream, you did know that the Philippines had a good start in that match. Just imagine they were able to score 27 points in the opening quarter alone, while Greece had 20. And I believe that's because of not necessarily lack of scouting, but because even though if you have scouted your opponent, you would still want to see them in the court. You would still want to get a feel of how they play. And then from there, that's where you adjust. That's where you tailor fit your defense, or that's how you take advantage of their defensive pattern so that you can score. So that's why basketball is a game of four quarters, and games are not won in the first quarter alone. And that's what Greece has proven against our Gilas Pilipinas Youth Squad, that from that 27-point first quarter, that our team did not score 20 points in a quarter anymore from quarters 2 to 4. So the Greeks were able to clamp down on defense while establishing their height advantage, and they were able to establish their dominance on the court. It's just a matter of the Greeks not knowing what hit them in the first quarter. And because the Greeks did not know who to cover, aside from, of course, the obvious Kai Soto and AJ Edu, they had a hard time adjusting to it. And it showed by the three-point shooting, a hot one at that for Gilas Youth. Dave Ildefonso was able to convert a three-pointer. Even Cyrus Torres was able to make one. Even Jerry Abadjan was able to convert a three-point conversion. And because of those conversions, or those successful attempts from outside, it opened up the floor a bit inside. That's why the likes of Soto and Ryan Amzali were able to dominate inside. And that's what happened in the first quarter. And that's where Greece was able to adjust from. And unfortunately, our Gilas Youth squad was not able to do so. Another heavy blow that struck Gilas Pilipinas Youth is the early injury of AJ Edu. As we all know, we don't have a deep rotation in the front court. That's only made of 4 people. So that's Soto, Edu, Joffrey Chu, and Tamayo. So losing AJ Edu early was a heavy blow for our campaign. First things first, he shouldn't be the one dribbling the ball down the court. It should have been a guard, should have been a small forward, and not him. And what happened was he tried to exploit an open lane, penetrate through, but there was a Greek defender waiting for him, and they collided knees, and Edu just came crashing down the court for a few minutes or so, and it was obvious that he was in pain. He needed help to just get up and get back to the bench, which is not a positive sign moving forward for Gilas Under-19 Youth Squad. So that's a questionable piece of the puzzle, so to speak, for Coach Santi Arespa Cochaga. How will he be able to maximize his three big guy rotation now. Uh, if that in case Edu couldn't return to the game, which by any indication might be hard because the game will be later in the morning as well at 1 a.m. on Monday here in Philippines against Argentina. So there's not much recovery period for him, and given the nature and given the graveness of the injury, I believe that AJ Edu wouldn't play against the Argentines. But let's all pray and hope, and we of course wish the best for our players. For in this instance, AJ Edu, and we hope that he can return. That a miracle would happen. That he would be healed, and somehow he will be able to suit up against Argentina in their next match. So that's a big hole on the front court rotation of the Gilas Pilipinas Youth squad, because not only Edu is one of the taller players in the squad, but rather he is your rim protector, and also he has that unbreakable hustle on the offensive rebounding side of the ball. And take him away, and a lot of defensive load or baggages will be given upon Soto. So that's why Edu is there in the starting rotation, because Kai Soto is your scoring big guy, and AJ Edu is more of your cleanup and more of your rim protector. And take him away, so that's a big blow, and that's a big void to fill for Chu and Tamayo. They would have to play the same defensive intensity as Edu has. Of course, have that nose for the ball, especially on offensive rebounding. Just imagine what happened in that one instance wherein Kai Soto and AJ Edu was just lording over the big men of Greece, collecting those offensive rebounds that eventually led to a foul by one of the Greek guys. So that's what you're missing without AJ Edu: the rim protection, number one. Number two, those opportunities for second chances because of offensive rebounds. And he's no pushover when it comes to scoring as well. He has a decent jump hook, and he has a good medium range jumper, Edu. And those are the factors that Gilas Pilipinas might be missing or losing if AJ Edu couldn't return to the court against Argentina. If there's something that Coach Aras Pacochaga and the rest of the Gilas Under 19 youth squad coaching staff can pick up from the Greeks, is their fluid orchestration of their plays. Just imagine how many screens or picks and rolls they set in one play in one 24-second shot clock. And that's why there have been instances wherein our players did not know who to cover anymore or cannot locate their man. It's like a motion offense, but as we know, motion offense is going to an open spot wherein your teammate can locate you if you don't have anyone guarding you. But in this case, I believe that Greece was able to put a little wrinkle into it, wherein you would have to set a screen first for your teammate before you pop out to the other side, and then one of the players would also peel out on the opposite direction, leaving two options for the ball handler to pass to, or maybe slash through the open lane that the screen has provided for. So those screens, those pick and rolls, those rotations is what Greece use to pick the Philippines defense apart, to dissect and just to exploit the defensive alignment of the Gilas youth, which is basically a 2-3 zone. There have been also instances wherein it seemed like there were on a half-court fast break wherein someone would penetrate down the lane, and then there is a trailer wherein our players were not able to cover, and that guy would just make an extra pass to that trailer for an even easier point. So that kind of system and that discipline to set screens and then go to an open spot is what separated Greece apart from the Philippines. And because they were able to establish their offense as well, uh, they were able to maximize their height on defense that our boys just couldn't find their teammates, that led to a lot of turnovers. So for the Greeks, leading scorer is Nicolas Arsenopoulos with 18 points and Aristotelis Sotiriou with 16. And there were two more players who had 10 points and one with 9. Compare that to our Gilas squad wherein Soto and Abadjano had 13 points apiece and Ildefonso had 12. So that's a discrepancy in points as well that is brought about by that very disciplined and very patient orchestration of the offense by the Greek squad. So that's one of the advantages that they had, and they exploited it with, of course, the help of their height advantage, and that's why they just pulled away in the late game. They just took advantage, kicked into a higher gear, and then did not let the Philippines even had a chance, especially in the fourth quarter. Coming into this game, we thought that the Gilas Pilipinas personnel at that, to cover the passing lanes, and they would be active on defense given that they have the height disadvantage. And unfortunately, the other way happened. Surprisingly, it's the Philippines who had the advantage in block shots, 7 against 2. So most of those came from Kai Soto, of course. But on the flip side, it was the Greeks who had an 11-3 advantage in steals. Not just because they were able to get a better feel of the Philippine game. They know the rules of each player, and that's why they were able to adjust. They were able to cover the main gunners and just clamp down on those who might bring the hurt on offense for us. But aside from being able to adjust, they were just more adept in covering the passing routes that the Philippines had, and because of their height advantage, there were situations wherein our guards would force the ball to a certain lane or even inside, and not knowing that the Greeks are already waiting to pounce, get a steal, or just disrupt the play. And they were lucky that they had 11 steals, and considering that is a 40-minute game, so that's a steal in about every 4 minutes or even less, because that's 11. And just imagine how many points the Gilas Youth squad could have scored if not for those steals. And those are 11 opportunities taken away from our squad. And God knows how many points the Greeks scored from those 11 steals. So that's a big swing towards their direction. Their height was very much utilized in that department. And that's one thing that our Gilas squad should look at coming into the game against Argentina. How to lessen those turnovers, and how to fool the opponents even more, so as not to be predictable and so as not to just basically give away steals to their opponents. But despite all the struggles that the Philippine team had, despite all the frustrations and all the troubles and the injuries that they faced during the game, they had a chance actually to steal the match from a 7-point lead in late in the first quarter, at the end of the first quarter at that. Greece only had a 6 point advantage coming into the fourth quarter. So that's just two 3 pointers or three field goals if they can manage to catch up. Unfortunately, when it mattered the most, it was the time wherein our squad even committed more turnovers and a ton of fouls. So those were worked in the advantage of the Greeks. Jerry Abajano, one of the smallest players in the rotation, but certainly not the least, had 13 points. He could have been player of the game because he even led the team with 7 rebounds. So he had more rebounds than Kai Soto, who stands at 7 feet 2. Unfortunately, those rebounds were negated by his 6 turnovers, and some of them committed in the fourth quarter. So a lot of mistakes, maybe frustration setting in as well, and because the Greeks already knew the nature of our players, who are the scorers, who are the defenders, and who are the defensive specialists. So they were able to adjust, and because they were able to adjust, they knew who to cover, and those created a lot of missed plays or botched plays for our squad. So from a 6 point advantage by the Greeks by the end of the third quarter, the final score became 85-69 in favor of the host team. So that's a 16-point lead and a plus 10 for the Greeks in the fourth quarter. Just when all the points, all the field goals, all the plays mattered the most, just so happened that the Greeks had more composure in them. Of course, it pays to also play in front of a home crowd, getting more acclimatized and getting a better feel of the court and of course of the surroundings. So that's a big plus. And our boys just melted down in the fourth quarter. Instead of looking at it as they only needed 6 points to stay in the game, they were forcing the issue, and unfortunately, those led to a lot of mistakes and blunders and turnovers. And essentially, those let the game slip away. It was a winnable game. We had a chance despite the injury to Edu, and despite the Greeks covering Kai Soto with a crowd or with a gang. We had a fighting chance to win that. It's just that when it mattered the most, our squad couldn't execute, committed a lot of turnovers, even fouls piled up for our squad. And those are bad recipes if you're trying to cook up a victory. And that's why Greece has scored their first win in the FIBA Under 19 World Cup, while the Philippines would like to bounce back and get their first victory against Argentina on Monday morning, 1 a.m. in the Philippines. So we would have to stay up a bit late or sleep early and then wake up, set up alarm clocks by 1 a.m. in the Philippines to be able to witness the second game of the Gilas Pilipinas Under 19 Youth Squad, this time against Argentina. It would be better, of course, if Gilas would win both their succeeding games in the pool stage against Argentina and then against Russia, so as to have a 2-1 record, which means that by the round of 16 they would have a quote-unquote weaker opponent in the other group. So they would have a better chance advancing to the quarters if they manage to win their succeeding games in the pool play. Regardless, Gilas will advance to the round of 16, but it would help if we have a better record coming in, so that we'll be matched up against an opponent that we can match up better, or an opponent that did not fare well in the pool stage. So There you have it. This has been your boy Lance Fernandez. Unfortunately, it's not a good day for a Philippine basketball fan. Our boys lost, but of course they still have an opportunity to bounce back in the next game against the Argentine squad. I hope that they let all of their frustration out. They let all of their anger out in the next game and just play like hell and play magnificently to get that victory for the squad and most importantly this crazy nation for basketball. Once again, this has been your boy Lance Fernandez, always telling you that life is a ball. Never give up until the final buzzer. Thank you. God bless.